Woo! All right, so with just 5 days to go until Brits go to the polls to elect their representatives for the European Parliament, we have some stunning news coming out about the latest polls. Now, just to put this in context for you, a week or so ago, polls were coming out that showed the newly formed Brexit Party, right, headed by Nigel Farage, polling at around 34%, which was up several points from the previous week. So it was suggesting a surge of populist support here. The Brexit Party was polling at 34%, while at the same time Labour was polling at 21%. The Tories, the Conservatives, they collapsed to fourth place, to a mere 11% of the vote there, just behind the Liberal Democrats, who were polling at around 12%. Now, just days before the election, the Brexit Party continues to rise in support, all the while the Tories continue to plunge. The Brexit Party is now enjoying 35% support, while the Tories have dropped to single digits to merely 9% support. It sort of reminds me of the Labour Party in Israel, this once mainstream party, Israel's center-left party, prime ministers and all. It collapsed in their last elections to a mere 6% of the vote. Same thing happened with the socialists in France. Remember, the socialists held the presidency with Hollande just a couple of years back, literally months back. They're now in single-digit support. So we're clearly seeing a collapse among mainstream parties. Now, that collapse has generally been with the center-left parties, particularly in Europe. We've seen support for the center-left erode across the continent. But here in Britain, my, oh my, did the center-right miscalculate the consequences of botching Brexit. We have some new data out that shows that the vast majority of Leavers who had voted for the Conservatives in the past are now voting for the Brexit Party. I mean, obviously, right? Nearly half of Leavers who voted in the past for Labour are voting for Farage's Brexit Party. We're seeing a massive realignment in British politics for this upcoming European Parliament election. Nearly 2/3 of those who voted for the Conservatives in 2017 are voting for the Brexit Party. All totaled, more than 1 in 3 Brits will be voting for the Brexit Party. Let that hit you. More than 1 in 3 Brits will be voting for the newly formed Brexit Party. When you combine the Brexit Party vote with the projected UKIP vote, folks, we're talking 40% of the vote. We're talking nearly 1 in every 2 voters voting for nationalist populists in Britain. This really is nothing short of total dominance in the vote. But it's not just the Brexit Party. Here's what's interesting. Now the hard left Liberal Democrats, they've taken second place away from Labour. The Liberal Democrats are polling at 16%, well below the Brexit Party, okay, which has double that support. But the Liberal Democrats are polling at 16%, while Labour is polling at 15%, right? Just a few percentage points above the Green Party, for heaven's sakes. All right, all the way in 5th place. Now, 5th place are the Tories, right? Just ahead of Change UK. Again, unfortunately, UKIP has dwindled. The latest poll shows them at around 3% support. So I'm assuming voters are just becoming pragmatic and they see a big win with Farage and the Brexit Party. We'll have to take a look at the data analysis after the election to see what's going on with UKIP. Currently, the Brexit Party is first place in every English and Welsh region except London. And they're even coming in second in Scotland, which voted overwhelmingly to stay within the EU back in 2016. Now, we've talked about this before, but it does bear repeating. What we're seeing in Britain is part of a far larger phenomenon known as de-alignment. Okay, this is what political scholars Roger Eatwell and Matthew Goodwin talk about in their book on nationalist populism, which is excellent. I'd recommend it to you. De-alignment involves the breakdown of the bonds that used to exist between traditional political parties and their constituents. And this breakdown in the bonds that voters have had with traditional parties is making it easier for new political challengers to rise up and take the nation, indeed the continent, in a new direction. So in Britain, get this, just to put it in context, in the 1960s, around 50% of the British population felt strongly aligned to one of the traditional parties, the Tories or Labour. By 2015, just only 10% right? About 13% had that kind of loyalty. Party loyalty dropped from 50% to 13% in a matter of a few decades. And when you look at the Brexit issue, support for Brexit cut directly across the traditional party electorates. And it's created an extraordinarily difficult situation for both parties, since the majority of the voters in both parties voted to leave, while the MPs themselves mostly wanted to stay, since, of course, they profit off this relationship with Brussels. Remember, over 2 million people who voted in the Brexit referendum did not vote in the last national election in Britain, right? Because they just didn't think there was a choice that represented their concerns. So clearly the opportunity is there for new parties to sweep in and offer voters a new direction. And that's precisely what Farage's Brexit Party is doing, and doing it very, very well indeed. So with just a few days to go before the European parliamentary elections, it does appear that a surge of British populism is ready to revolt. Nearly 70% of the British public, 70% is ready to revolt. They are revolting against the two established parties that have so disappointed Britain. Have so disappointed them at home and abroad in Brussels. And they're ready to make some noise in the world about this. It really does look like Britain is changing in ways we could not have even imagined a year ago. A massive paradigm shift is rocking the aisles, and there's little question that a new political order is emerging both in Brussels and in Britain.